Ian Roberts' resume following questions after his ICE detainment. They say Dr. Roberts provided an initial resume to JG Consulting, which helped the MPS with the search. It said he earned a doctorate from Morgan State University, but during the background check process, the degree was flagged as not completed. The resume was then revised, noting that Roberts had not finished a dissertation, which is required to earn a doctorate. Board members had that revised resume throughout the interview process. School board president Jackie Norris released a statement saying in part, quote, "The Des Moines School Board is also a victim of deception by Dr. Roberts, one on a growing list that includes our students and teachers, our parents and community, our elected officials, and Iowa's Board of Educational Examiners, and others," end quote. The district also tells KCCI Trident University was listed on his resume for a doctorate of education degree. KCCI did reach out to the university to see if Roberts had completed his doctorate, but have not yet heard back.
School district officials say 2 years ago, Roberts claimed he had a doctorate from Morgan State University, but they say records showed he never obtained it. Despite the discrepancy, the district still hired him. Now MIT saying Roberts' claim he was an MBA student there is also false. And George Washington University saying the Principal of the Year award Roberts boasted he received does not exist.
A jail log shows Ian Roberts was booked earlier this evening on a foreign warrant. The Iowa Department of Public Safety says officers responded to a mutual aid request at around 9 o'clock this morning from Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Authorities say that they performed a traffic stop where Roberts identified himself and then sped away and abandoned his vehicle near a wooded area. A short time later, he was taken into ICE custody.
Now, ICE officials say Roberts had a loaded handgun, $3,000 in cash, and a fixed blade hunting knife in his possession. Homeland Security saying Roberts is a criminal illegal alien from Guyana. He entered the U.S. on a student visa back in 1999 and given his final order of removal in May of 2024. Roberts has been serving as superintendent of the Des Moines Public.
Wow. All right, folks. It is Friday and it's time for Pop and Politics. I'm KJ along with Nicole Bennett.
Hey, y'all.
All right. Shelly is out tonight, but she will be back on Monday. Folks, we've got a full show tonight. All right. So before we light this fire, do your part, tap that thumbs up, smash that subscribe button, and turn on your notifications. We're live here on YouTube and Rumble. If you're on the go, you can catch us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify under the name Pop and Politics. We love our chat. Oh, Friday nights are always a really crazy night in the chat. It's really engaged. We love you guys for it. We also shout out every super chat. So drop your thoughts, show your love, and join the conversation that the mainstream media wishes didn't exist. This is not just a podcast. This is a movement of God-fearing, truth-seeking, America-loving people that value freedom. Stand with us and subscribe so we can amplify this rallying call for freedom. All right, Nicole, let's set it off. As you saw at the top of the show, the crazy, jaw-dropping takedown of Des Moines so-called Superintendent Dr. Ian Roberts. Doctor, I put that in quotation marks. This is trippy, is it? Or
it's
not?
Crazy. It's absolutely insane. First of all, I'm not going to call him doctor. I'm just going to call him Ian. It is what it is. Fight me. So I feel like nothing about this man is true. Like everything that he's ever said about himself professionally, and now we're finding out some other things, just not true. This whole thing with his immigration status alone should have made him not hireable by anybody.
Right.
He's overstayed his student visa. I mean, at what point did somebody not say that this guy is not authorized to work in the United States?
Right. I mean, it's not a feeling, Nicole. Nothing that he has done is true. I mean, this guy's not the American dream. He's a walking fraud factory. Illegal immigrant, gun-toting criminal, credential faking extraordinaire, Guyana roots to a cushy $300,000 Iowa gig. I mean, he built his entire empire on deception. And now ICE finally slammed the cuffs on him, of course, this week. And folks, the receipts are scorching. I mean, again, he was born in Guyana. He hit the U.S. soil in 1994 and immediately got pinched for drug dealing and jacking cars. Now we fast forward 30 years from petty crook to high roller superintendent, all on a foundation of lies. And this is what I'm talking about, because you have these people out here who are really giving ICE a hard way to go. Mm-hmm. And I mean, just the mere fact that people are coming here illegally, it does say a lot about some of these people. I would say most of them, because if you're starting out wrong, no telling what other lies or deceptive things you're doing. Is that too harsh, Nicole?
No, that's not harsh enough. Let me go ahead and put on my Shelley hat, since this is not here tonight. Put my Shelley hat on. And this Negro did it on our tax dime. Wow. All of our taxpayer money paid for all of his so-called highfalutin education.
Right.
We've paid for it. So not only is he distasteful, in the words of Des Moines School District, because they're still calling him Dr. Roberts, but as a taxpayer, I'm miffed. We have supported this man jumping from institution to institution to institution on student loan after student loan after student loan, and he's not even a citizen. I don't even want to tell you how much money I had to come out of pocket to send my daughter, who is an outstanding student, to school, because all of the student loan money is, because her mother has a decent job, she wasn't eligible for a lot of things. She really wasn't. So I had to foot the bill for a lot of things. So it burns me up to see this guy overstay a student visa, which, I'm struggling to understand how he got in the first place. Let's do that.
Yeah. You're absolutely
right. What are we going to do about that? How are we going to get our money back from him? He's driving around with a loaded gun, a knife, and $3,000. I want my money back. I absolutely want my money back.
You're right. I mean, and you brought up a good point. This is taxpayer cash. So Iowa's biggest school district hands over $300,000 a year to run Des Moines public schools. And again, that's your money, America. Your hard-earned tax dollars funding, this guy's housing and no telling what else. And so now they've actually got a lawsuit against the Iowa School District, I believe.
Yep. Yes.
Is a lawsuit against the firm that they hired to vet this guy, as they should. No.
Well, I think they should, but however, it does not release them from their responsibility of following up. I run a business, and in our business, we are in healthcare. So we take care of people. Yes, we have a company that runs a background check, but can I tell you, it's nothing compared to the background check that Nicole Bennett does. Let me tell you, Black women have a couple of skill sets that most people don't know about. We can track stuff down like nobody's business and come back with the receipts. So some of the people who passed the company that we use passed their background test, got nowhere near a job with us because of my background test.
Wow.
I'm one of those people that actually called the school. When did they start? When did they end? Did they graduate? What kind of student were they? Were they ever arrested for protesting? All of those things are important. I want to know before I unleash them on the people that I'm charged to care for. So when we talk about the adults that we treat at my medical practice, imagine what the school system is liable for unleashing this man that they have no idea who he is or what he's capable of on small children. Wow. And they're not the only ones. He's been all over the country doing this foolishness.
Yeah. And when he got caught, he didn't go, he didn't say, well, you know what? I've been doing this for a long time. I finally got caught. I'm going to go along with this and do this the right way. No, he fled, did he not?
He was running for his life. Yes, he was. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
ICE chased him down and hunted him down like the monster he is. I'm going to say this. When you think about the unfettered access that he had to our children, If this is not a wake-up call for America, especially smaller town America, some people cut corners here or there, try to save a few dollars. When it comes to making sure that people are who they say they are, when it comes to our children, no expense should be spared. No expense. Thank God he wasn't someone who has an unnatural attraction to children.
Yeah.
Or did they just pick him because he's Black and fancy? Was that enough?
That sounds like what it was to me. This is what it. I mean, we're in this sort of atmosphere right now where, this is actually happening. This is actually happening, and it's sad to say. I hope that's not the case. I really do. But I mean, just set aside the illegal immigration stuff, all of his phony records. Well, folks, he actually has a ties where we're here in Baltimore. He has ties here. So he is actually tied to Baltimore's exploding grade fixing scandal. I mean, this thing is just, he's got his hand in everything. So he was a principal at Friendship Academy. And so Roberts allegedly strong-armed teachers to pump up scores for kids who never even showed up to class. So again, this ties straight into the $219 million ghost student ripoff exposed by Chris Papst's Failure Factory. He is an investigative reporter here in Baltimore City. Before we get into this, I want you guys to take a look at this next clip they talk about his grade changing scandal. This is clip 2.
Yeah, Mary, as if this list of allegations wasn't long enough already, Roberts is now being tied to Baltimore City's long-standing grade-changing scandal.
As the controversies surrounding Ian Roberts continue making headlines nationwide, tonight, Fox 45 uncovering an old lawsuit revealing new allegations stemming back to his time with Baltimore City schools. While serving as the principal at Friendship Academy of Science and Technology, a teacher accusing him of pressuring staff to improve students' grades without cause, even for classes they never attended. The teacher, who was later fired, suing the school system and Roberts for wrongful termination. The lawsuit alleging Dr. Roberts' actions were meant to make a failing school appear successful. That was back in 2009. But the lawsuit wasn't filed until 2013. In turn, the school system successfully arguing the statute of limitations had run out. BCPS also claiming the teacher harassed and threatened school leaders, including delivering a bat to the HR department with a letter reading in part, "I hope it feels good to beat a teacher." Another message reading, "This is why children are not learning." A decade later,
to pass students along or just round the grades, it does a disservice.
Maryland Inspector General for Education Rick Henry confirming serious allegations of widespread grade changing inside city schools. The findings released in 2022 after a 1.5 year long investigation.
What was very stunning to us is that we were being told that this was not the practice, but we were, as we were looking through all of the documents that were provided by the city schools, we kept uncovering more and more that showed this practice. I mean, it was literally written.
The report revealing more than 12,000 failing grades were changed to passing over a 5-year period, although Roberts was long gone before the investigation even began, ending a nearly 8-year career in the city in 2010. Today, Fox 45 sending the school system questions asking, does BCPS stand by its investigation, finding no merit to the grade-changing allegations against Roberts? Did the district receive any other complaints over the years about Roberts pressuring teachers to alter grades? And in light of the IG's findings, will BCPS revisit the case to determine whether similar patterns existed earlier? We did not immediately hear back.
Now, considering Roberts' immigration status, Fox 45 has also reached out to BCPS, asking them how he was able to pass a background check. However, the school system claims that his employment falls outside of their records retention period. Reporting live in Baltimore City, Rebecca Pryor, Fox 45 News.
I'm Kai Jackson. Thank you for watching. Here's another.
Wow. All right.
Out of their
So
minds.
This is insane. All right. So tonight we're diving into the explosive world of education corruption with Emmy-winning investigative journalist Chris Papst, author of the #1 Amazon bestseller Failure Factory: How Baltimore City Public Schools Deprive Taxpayers and Students of a Future. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, Chris. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. We are excited to dig into this. You have been on the ground talking about the school system here in Baltimore City, and your book dives into education and gives a warning for all of America. So let's get right into this. I want to start out just from the angle of this so-called Dr. Ian Roberts. You know, with him now being exposed for faking success at a Canton charter school to climb the ladder, despite students skipping classes entirely, how does this mirror Failure Factor's ghost student scam? And what does it say about Baltimore's taxpayer-funded ladder for corrupt educators?
So what is happening with Dr. Roberts is not surprising. In fact, it's quite unsurprising in that this is common. So what Failure Factory is Failure Factory is an 8-year examination of Baltimore City public schools and Maryland public schools. It started in Baltimore City, but as we started to see what was happening in Baltimore City, we're seeing that the concepts that were taking root in Baltimore City concerning education and how the school systems are valuing funding over students and they're valuing data over education. That concept is leaking out into the suburbs and leaking out throughout the entire country. So if we look back at Dr. Roberts, what you're saying is he is falsifying data to make a school look more successful than it actually is. That is the entire school system. What you played there with Rick Henry, the Inspector General for Education, that's an interview that I did with him in 2022. After we first started doing stories on grade changing, where the schools are taking failing grades of students and making them into passing grades so those students can move on to the next grade and eventually graduate, that was an interview from 2022 in which he said there were 12,500 improper grade changes. Now, the biggest part of his investigation that was, again, started after Project Baltimore began doing this in 2017, was that he said upwards of 10% of students who graduated at many schools should not have graduated. And they graduated because their grades were improperly changed from failing to passing. So Mr. Roberts, if he was doing this in Baltimore City, he was not alone. There were many, many people doing this for many, many years.
So this is not an individual or a couple of rogue actors. This is more of a systemic kind of scheme to make sure that they secure the funding based on the data that says these schools are successful versus schools who may not be kind of skewing their data. So how do we tell what metrics, what tools can we use to determine whether or not the school systems are still doing this? Because it sounds like it's pretty profitable. You know, an easy fix to a problem they have.
Yeah, it's very profitable. And the whole concept of Failure Factory is showing this 8-year, it's not just a couple months. This is 8 years of Project Baltimore and me investigating Baltimore City schools. And the question you have is a very, very good one, which I address in chapter 1 of the book. Because before I get into how grades are changed, students are graduating who can't read, violence data is heavily manipulated. The Baltimore City schools simply quit arresting kids. Kids would bring guns into schools and they're not getting arrested. They quit suspending kids. They're making the schools look safer than they are, more successful than they are. They're manipulating all of this data. But there is some data that they cannot manipulate, or at least it's really hard to manipulate. And that is state standardized testing and federal standardized testing. So, you hear a lot about how school systems don't like standardized testing. Well, start thinking about why. It's because they can't manipulate it. And what you see in Baltimore City schools is that you see a graduation rate of 72%. It's the lowest in the state of Maryland, 72%. However, you also have 10% of students are proficient in math, according to MCAP, which is the Maryland Comprehensive Assessment Program. That's the state standardized testing. How do you have 72% of students graduating, but yet 10% of them are proficient in math? And that's the answer to your question. The school system can push kids along from first to second, second to third, all the way up the ladder until they graduate from high school. But what they can't do is they can't sit there with that child and make sure that they're taking the standardized test from the state the appropriate way. So these students are being pushed through the school system. They're not getting the education that they need. 10% of them in 2024 are proficient in math, but 72% graduation rate because you can't manipulate the state testing. So if you really want to know how well a school is doing, don't look at the attendance rate. That can be manipulated. Don't look at chronic absenteeism. Don't look at suspensions. Don't look at grades. Don't look at graduation rates. Look at that standardized test number. That will tell you what you need to know.
Yeah. And we've covered this on here before because you have the left saying that standardized tests are racist. And we've been seeing that all over the country, not here in Baltimore City, but we have a lot of the left saying, oh, these standardized tests are outdated. They should not be used because they are racist. What do you say? Do you touch on that at all in your book?
So yes. So what I touch on is the education establishment doesn't like standardized testing because of the reason I just said. They can't control it. It's completely out of their control. Most all of the other data in a school system, they can control. They can't control the standardized testing, which is why they don't like it. But let's also take a look at this. A few years ago, in 2020, Maryland didn't think that graduation rates were good enough. They wanted more kids to graduate. But what they didn't do was actually say, hey, why don't we educate our kids better? That's not what they did. What they did was they lowered the standards to graduate, and they removed the standardized testing from graduation. And what that means is students no longer have to be proficient in math, science, or reading to be able to obtain a high school diploma from the state of Maryland. And what you're seeing is you're seeing that play out because you look at our economy, you look at what is happening. A high school diploma used to mean that if you go to an employer, you say, I have a high school diploma. That would mean that you have a certain level of math and reading proficiency and skill. It does not mean that anymore. The state took it all away. Now, when the state took it away, their argument was that the standardized testing, it was really difficult for minority students and those with disabilities to pass the test. But instead of giving minority students and those with disabilities a better education to pass the test, they just take the test away and say, you know what, you don't have to pass this test anymore. You don't have to be proficient, and we're still going to give you a high school diploma.
Wow. Which is ridiculous. The repercussions it has on our economy and our culture are just resounding. I can remember being at college, and I went to an HBCU, and we had regular classes, but they had a set aside classroom, a building for people who were literally paying to do high school over again because they didn't get any education. Like, we have classes in college Monday, Wednesday, or Tuesday, Thursday. They went to school every single day as if they were in high school. But here's the big difference. That free education that you didn't get, you're now paying for. You're absolutely paying for it, and it's putting you behind the 8 ball. It absolutely is putting you behind the 8 ball. So this is not only a problem for these educators, and I use that term loosely, enriching themselves, but impoverishing everybody else. Everybody else is affected by this. This is ridiculous.
Well, you look at Baltimore. Baltimore is a struggling city. You look at the population. Baltimore's population, and this is really stunning. Baltimore's population in 1920 was higher than it is today. This is a city that has been struggling for a very, very long time. And the crime, while it is down, Baltimore was just rated the fourth most dangerous city in America a couple months ago by US News and World Reports. Last year, Baltimore was named the deadliest city in America by HomeSafe. Even though crime has come down a little bit, you still have to compare it to the rest of the country. Crime across the country is down. So relatively, Baltimore is still one of the most dangerous and deadliest places in America. You look at the economy is going down. Every year, thousands of people are fleeing the city. The tax base is going down. This is a city that is struggling to survive. And I contend in Failure Factory, and I contend in doing all of my interviews like this, that what you're seeing, the crime, the poverty, the blight, that is the symptom of the problem. The problem is that the school system is failing to properly educate the kids that are in this city. And when a student graduates, many of them simply do not have the skills that they need to enter the workforce and take care of themselves and take care of their families. Until Baltimore fixes that problem, Baltimore is going to have a very, very difficult time reversing the trend and succeeding. Now, in 2017, when Project Baltimore started, Baltimore City was probably the third lowest performing school system in America, but yet also one of the highest funded. In 2025, Baltimore is about the third lowest performing school system in America and still one of the highest funded. 8 years, nothing has changed. And that's the point of Failure Factory, because in those 8 years, Baltimore City has received about $13 billion from taxpayers. $13 billion in 8 years. The graduation rate in 2017 was 72%. The graduation rate today, 72%. Nothing's changed. And it's simply because these school systems have become, and this is the main theme of Failure Factory, they have become places to acquire wealth before educating students. The priority of the school systems is not to educate the students. The priority of the school system is to acquire wealth. That is how you can have a $1.7 billion budget in 2024 and 10% of the kids are proficient in math. If the priority of the school system were to educate their students, 10% would not be proficient in math. It would be a lot higher.
And, as Failure Factory positions Baltimore as a cautionary tale for America's public education system, what lessons from your investigations could conservative-led states apply right now to dismantle similar failure factories elsewhere?
There's a lot. Where do we want to start here?
I know your book, and folks, you got to get this book. You got to get the book. It gives answers a lot of these questions, and I think it's a very good tool to have when we talk about the education system and the root causes of a lot of the failures within the education system. This book goes in detail and is a great tool to have to kind of push back against some of the woke lies that we're hearing and that we talk about here on the show. But I would like to know if just a couple things you think to dismantle this.
So we just talked about how the solution to increasing graduation rates was not to better educate the kids. It was to lower the standards to graduate so you no longer have to be proficient to get more kids to graduate. Okay, that was the solution. And what Failure Factory does is that I lay out a lot of situations within school board policy that people can look for to see if it starts seeping into their school system. Because there are certain things that you can look for that if you start to see them, it's an indication that the academic outcomes in your school system are going the wrong way. One of them, obviously, is if they lower the expectations of high school graduation rates, but that one's pretty simple and obvious. I'm going to give you one that is less obvious, and there's a few examples like this in the book. I give 3 or 4 examples that if you see these things coming into your school system, be very worried because it's a bad indication. One of them is called the 50% rule. And what that is that in Baltimore City, if you look in the fine print of the school board policy, They have a rule where a student, no matter how few times they show up to class, no matter how little work they do, no matter how bad their grades are, no matter how much they don't learn, cannot get lower than a 50% as a semester or marking period grade. So a student can literally, and in Failure Factory, I talk to students, I interview a student who did not go to school for 120 days, but got a 50% because of this 50% rule. They start at a 50. No matter what, they start at a 50. Even if they never step one foot in that classroom, they start at a 50. And what that was for was to make sure more students are passing. Now, the school system admits this. They want more kids to pass. The emphasis is on passing, not on learning, because when a student passes, you keep them in the school system, they're less likely to drop out, and you keep getting the funding for that student. But think about this for a second. So in Baltimore City schools, a passing grade is a 60. If every student starts at a 50, out of a 100-point scale, you only have to earn 10 points to pass a course. And the students know this. I talked to a teacher in Failure Factory, and she says to me, our kids are very smart. It's just that the adults have set such a low bar that the students are going to achieve that bar. And she said she had students that would come to class, and let's say they're halfway through the year and they have a decent grade. She's like, they'll calculate the rest of their grade knowing I can't give them less than a 50. And they'll take off the rest of the year because they know that they're going to pass because they can't get lower than a 50. Or she said they'll have kids that'll just not come to school for the first semester, know that they're going to get a 50, and then just start school halfway through the year and just do the little work they have to do to get a 60 to be able to pass. And on top of that, one of the big themes of Failure Factory that we're talking about with Mr. Roberts is the grade changing aspect. Many grades of 58 and 59 and 57s are rounded up to 60. So there are many kids that only had to get 7 points out of a 100-point scale because they started at 50, get to a 57, the 57s rounded up to a 60, and then they pass. And that is how you get 10% of the kids in a school system that are proficient in math. And it's happening right now.
Oh my God.
That's ridiculous.
Folks, go out and get this book, Failure Factory. Chris, can you just tell people where they can get it and anything else that you would like to share with our audience?
Sure. So anywhere books are sold, Barnes & Noble, Amazon, any bookstore, if they don't have it on the shelves, you can certainly order it. I think that one thing I could just share here, if I can just get 60 more seconds,
sure,
is when we started Project Baltimore in 2017, I was an investigative reporter in Washington, D.C. And I came here and I had a pretty good reputation for doing what I do in D.C. And some people knew me when I was coming here. And they had said to me, if you're really going to dig into the school system, what you're going to notice is that the school system is more concerned about acquiring funding and hiring adults than they are about educating the kids. Educating the kids is not the priority. And that was really hard for me to hear because I went to public school. My kids go to public school. My dad was a public school teacher for 35 years in Pennsylvania. So that was hard for me to hear. And I didn't believe it. And as I started doing Project Baltimore in 2017, turned into 2018, 2019, 2020, and I started to do this every single day, I started to realize it appears to be right. Wow. And the school system's first priority is to acquire funding. The second priority is to hire adults, and then the kids come after that. And I can give you the perfect example of how I know this. From 2017 to 2024, those 8 school years, which is what Failure Factory covers, the school system has lost 6,500 students because Baltimore is the population is going down. Mm-hmm. So the school system has 6,500 students less. However, it has 1,200 more adults working for the school system. It has $400 million more dollars a year getting pumped into it. And the graduation rate is exactly the same. So taxpayers are giving this school system $400 million more dollars a year. There's 1,200 additional employees working for the school system to educate 6,500 fewer students, and the school system has not moved as far as student outcomes.
Wow, bureaucracy.
That's ridiculous. You know what we need to do, Pop family, is everybody needs to buy this book. Download it on Audible if you need to, just listen to it for yourself, but get a physical copy of this book, preferably in hardback, right? Show up to these Board of Education meetings where you got 2 minutes to talk, open it up and just start reading to them and say, this is what I'm seeing here. Is this what we're talking about? And make sure other parents and other interested parties buy this book, because this kind of education, when he's talking about that 50% plan, I've heard that around, and I've got a million other things going. I'm not really paying attention to it, but now you talk about high beams on. They're going to have to explain this to me in a much better way, not because my child is young enough to still be in school. Knock wood, thank God that she's, grown and out of the house. But I live in this community. The same things that can happen in Baltimore because of the lack of education could surely happen here in my much smaller rural community. So I definitely want to keep my eyes on the prize as far as getting these kids educated and living in a community where I can grow old peacefully. Let's hear all of that. And the children have an opportunity at the American dream. It is hard to compete when you were never given the basics. And I think that is the sin of this whole thing. But there's some corruption that we need to get rid of here in this state.
Yeah, before you go, Chris, we have some super chatters here. So let's see here. Thank you all so much. We really appreciate it. Jessica Price with the $5 super chat says, KJ and Nicole, ask Chris about kids with IEPs and online charter schools. What's the statistics on that? What effect does this have on the school system? All right.
Well, IEPs are, I mean, as far as Project Baltimore is concerned, the biggest concern we get from parents in a school system is bullying. That's number one. The second one is IEPs. There are an astounding number of students in not just Baltimore City schools, this is throughout Maryland, whose IEPs are not being properly followed. And this is something that we follow very closely at Project Baltimore, because when a student has an IEP, which is an individualized education program, they're designed for students with disabilities. And what the IEP does is it lays out a plan for that student that the school system is supposed to follow in order to give that student the appropriate education. But there are an astronomical amount of students that are simply not getting what they need. However, let's go back to the priority of a school system. It's the funding. So when a student has an IEP, that student gets extra funding from the federal government and also from the state to supply the services for the IEP. But in so many instances, those services are not rendered to the student. But do you think the school system gives the money back? Of course not. They just keep it. So the school system gets the money, the students do not get the services, and the school system just keeps the money. Now, we have been reporting on this, and Project Baltimore has been reporting on this for years, and we keep telling these stories. But there needs to be some sort of uprising from parents, because the school systems are simply not being held accountable. I can do stories like this all day long, and I do a lot of them every single year. But we need to have the community rallying behind and demanding that these schools do their job. These are federal laws. This is IDEA, Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. This is a federal law. School systems in Maryland right now are in violation of federal law, and nothing is ever done about it. It is really alarming, and I'm glad that our viewer brought that up, because IEPs are a huge problem. They have to be fixed, but the people are the ones that have to fix it, because they can't allow this to continue to happen.
Wow. We have another one here. Jessica, again, with the $10 super chat, says Mackenzie has developmental delays and has an IEP and is in special ed classes. By federal and state child ADA law, the state and school district cannot fail her, so she moves up to the next grade regardless.
Wow.
Yep. Yeah, that is also a situation. So you have the IDEA or the ADA, and many of these students cannot be held back. But let's talk about that for a second. Is that really benefiting the student? So
Not at all.
the student needs to master the material in that grade before moving them on. And it goes back to, again, what we were talking about before. How do you have a 72% graduation rate with 10% of students proficient in math? It's because you're moving them through the grade levels when they do not have the proper proficiencies and the mastery of that particular grade. Now, in a school system like Baltimore, about 12 to 15% of the students have disabilities. They have IEPs. So when you're talking about the large numbers that we've been talking about, the overwhelming majority are students that do not have IEPs. But the same thing is happening to them. They're being pushed through the school system without getting the education they need.
Wow. All right, folks. Kung Fu CJ with the $2 super chat says, "Hello, Poppin' Politics family. Let's get it popping." Thank you so much. Yes, guys. And if you and we have Liberty joined our membership club, the Freedom Seekers. We have 2 new members, Amanda and Liberty. And Wendy's back. Hey, Wendy.
Haven't seen you in a minute, girl. Glad you're back.
Yes, good to see you. Good to see you. Friday nights are always fun. But this is such good information, folks. Definitely go out and get this book by Chris Papst, Failure Factory. And one last thing I want to say is you can also check out Just the Guys interview with Chris. Giovanni interviewed Chris about Failure Factory, and he goes into, it was a very long, very good interview. I went into in-depth. So definitely check him out there at Just the Guys podcast, and you can get even more information about the book and about what's going on in education. We have Jessica with another super chat. Says, this is Shrinkala. Says, setting education low bars, eventually behind bars. All right. Jessica Price again says, what's Chris's opinion on online charter schools? Do you touch on that, Chris?
I'm not aware of any online charter schools in Maryland. Now, Baltimore does have an online school.
Right.
I'm not sure it's a charter school. The charter schools in Maryland are really hard to do because only about 40 in the entire state, and I think 35 of them are in Baltimore City. And the way that the charter school laws are written in Maryland, they were written so that not many charter schools would be created because the unions have a significant amount of power. And the school systems have a significant amount of power, and it makes sense that they don't want the competition. And the way that the charter schools work in Maryland is that if you want to start a charter school, you have to go to your school board, and the school board has to approve it. So essentially, the school board has to approve its own competition. So put that into like a real world perspective. Let's say that you own McDonald's and you have 10 McDonald's in a town. And Burger King has to get approval from McDonald's to open a building. Is Burger King going to get that approval? No, of course not. McDonald's isn't going to approve their own competition. But that's how charter schools are in Maryland. The school board has to approve its own competition, which would be the charter school. So they're really hard to open. I do not know for a fact that there is not an online charter school in Maryland. I'm just not aware of one. The online school in Baltimore City, my understanding is that it does have some success, and I think a lot of it is because of, you're separated from schoolhouses, and you don't have to deal with disruptive kids. You don't have to deal with violence. You can learn on your own. You can learn at your own pace. You can learn quietly, and for a lot of students, that's a very effective way for them to learn.
All right, folks. Well, we will continue, of course, to talk about education, particularly in Maryland, in Baltimore City. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, Chris.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you. I love these discussions. I spent 8 years of my professional life doing this every single day. So it's a passion of mine. And I wrote this book, Failure Factory, because I do believe in public schools. I believe that they can be fixed. And if they aren't fixed, our society is in trouble. Baltimore can be a thriving city, but it's not going to be a thriving city until the school system starts to properly educate the students. That's why I wrote Failure Factory.
Absolutely. Well, we've got to have you back on. I can't believe this is your first time on Pop in Politics. We got to have you back on. Thank you so much.
Anytime.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Wow. I mean, so much. I have so much to say regarding this. Honestly, I think this may be by design. I think that some bureaucrats, particularly here in Baltimore, want to keep our children dumbed down. What do you think about that, Nicole? You think that's the case, or am I being too cynical?
No, I think it's absolutely the case. There's a few things, especially, I'm always looking at things from a political slant. One way to guarantee voters who vote the way that you tell them to vote, that you tell them it's in their best interest, is to not allow them to learn to think critically. And you learn to think critically when you're in elementary school, right? They do this thing in elementary school where they say Johnny was running at 2 miles an hour and fell off of a cliff. Where does Johnny land? Well, your first answer is I hope he lands on something soft, right? But then after you go through algebra and you learn all of the equations, you say, oh, well, he's going to land 10 feet away from the cliff. That kind of thinking, that kind of reasoning helps you later on in life when you sit and you think, okay, well, this candidate has raised my taxes. My kids are not getting proper education. I'm not going to vote for this party anymore because of that. Well, if you can't make that reasoning, then you're not going to do that. You're going to vote for the person who knocks on your door with the cute, sweater on and gives you a bag of Utz chips for your vote. And this is what they're doing. This is how Democrats stay in power in blue cities. I believe they are creating a brand new crop of people who are wholly dependent on the government for everything. This is one way to guarantee that the government continues to reign, is to make sure that the people are uneducated.
Yeah.
And this is what we're seeing.
You're absolutely right, Nicole. You are absolutely right. Folks in the chat, I see you guys have been sounding off all night. We still have some super chats here. Thank you so much. Kung Fu CJ says they are creating government dependence. Absolutely. Yes. Jessica again says, in my state of South Carolina, there are online charter schools. Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, we have to continue to monitor this, folks. I mean, I know we do preach about homeschooling. It's a great way to a lot of times these homeschool kids are much far along than certain public schools, certainly depending on your district. But yeah, I still want public schools to thrive. I do. But I don't know if it will, on the rate that we're going. I really don't.
Do you know, KJ, I think back to when I was in school, high school particularly, and it was hard. It was hard. I was a smart kid, but it was hard because the expectations kind of inched up. Every quarter there was more expectations. And I personally felt bad for kids who transferred into my high school, who came from schools where they didn't have a robust classical education. They just could not keep up. They couldn't keep up with the workload. They couldn't participate in class conversations. It took them the time that I could read a whole book. They could only read a chapter. I mean, we read Beowulf in the original Old English, right? If you struggle in modern English, there's no way that you're going to make that transition. And once you did that, the rest of the course was based on that information. When you think of kids who can't participate, not because they don't want to, they just don't have the skill set, that reverberates through their life.
Right.
And then we wonder why some people are disaffected. I mean, they live like they're disenfranchised from the entire nation. How did we get to a place where we're going to have to leave several 100,000 people behind us simply because they cannot compete? It's happening every single day. And this is something that not only parents have to get a hold of, but taxpayers have to get a hold of. We need to hold these school boards accountable. And when I tell you people, vote in these little tiny local elections, people say, oh, it doesn't really matter. It matters. If you didn't learn anything from the scamdemic, you should learn that local elections matter. These are the people who hold your children's future in their hands.
Absolutely. All right, folks. So again, as you all come in, please hit that like button. It helps to get this video out in front of a wider audience, and subscribe. We love bringing you the facts. Love bringing you the, on the ground investigative reporting, like Chris Papst, and his book. I mean, I couldn't say it while he was on, but I consider his book just as important as what's my other book here? Heather McDonald's The War on Cops, where she kind of like went through the data on these police departments. The left was telling us, oh, the police departments, the police that are racist and corrupt and things, and they're they're racially profiling Black people. Well, she went through the data in this, and it's not correct. And I think his book is going to do the same thing on education, because again, we are told by the left that they're racist. We need more money. Education needs more money. Charter schools are bad, and there are. This is why public schools are failing. All of these excuses. And here in Chris Papst's Failure Factory, you have an investigative reporter on the ground with the grassroots data. So I love it.
How about an Emmy award winning investigative? I mean, he had so many Emmys behind him. He could have loaned me a couple from my little shelves.
I know.
I feel like he could have just let me borrow one for the good look. I mean, this man really has his finger, on the pulse when it comes to this particular topic. And this is something that he's made it easy for you to be an engaged parent. So you don't have to go out and research it all. You can show up at the school board meeting and demand results. And when they bring up, because I know I've heard that 50% thing somewhere else before. I can't remember if it was here or if it was on the Eastern Shore. But, I have friends that are school teachers and they teach children in much smaller classes, because the population is different. It is still very difficult to even kind of explain away this whole thing about testing being racist. It's like, okay, so the test is not a thing. I mean, it's a piece of paper. It's not racist. A 2 for a white guy is a 2 for a Black guy. It's the same thing. So they have to fight through all of that. And once they get through that, then you have to fight with the funding situation. And I can see where some people get lost in the weeds about educating children when their mind is not on educating children, when they're thinking about all the other things. But we really do have to focus in. The Chinese are doing amazing things with their kids.
I know.
And
We gotta get on the ball, people. We have to get on the ball. Yeah. And also, I saw someone comment about this. If for anything, even if you aren't interested in the material, buy him for his pretty blue eyes. My goodness. I have seen this man all on Fox 45, and I love his voice. I always listen to him with the voiceovers and things. Well, goodness, I never noticed those eyes before. I started to go out, tiptoe away and get my bathing suit and swim in those pretty blues. So ladies,
you just couldn't help yourself, KJ. You were doing so good.
I know. All right. So we got to move on to Diddy. Wow, folks. Breaking news out today. In a Manhattan federal courtroom, hip-hop mogul Sean Diddy Combs, 55, was sentenced to 50 months, just over 4 years in prison. We have a video here. Take a look. Oh, do we have a video? Okay.
I'll click the button. Here comes the video.
Oh, well, that's fine. So yeah, a U.S. district judge, Arun Subramanian, for 2 counts of transportation to engage in prostitution under the Mann Act. He was acquitted in July 2025 of more severe racketeering and sex trafficking charges, which could have meant life in prison. But again, he got 4 years, and he's actually going to get time served for a little over a year. So he's just, right. So he'll probably serve about 3 years. So definitely suggest you guys take a look at the judge's sentencing is actually what they said. Prosecutors sought 11 plus years, citing the need for a message to abusers, while defense lawyers pushed for 14 months. So, gotta ask you, Nicole, I know you have been following this case from day one. Do you think the sentence was adequate, or do you think not enough, or too little, or too much?
Well, I think it's just about right. I think for what he was actually convicted for, it was just about right. So the judge's ruling gave me a little pause when I read it, because the judge goes on and on about abuse of women and that kind of thing. Well, he wasn't convicted of abuse of women. He got convicted for taking hoes to a prostitution situation, right? So transporting hoes, for all you guys who are these passport bros who like to bring women in to do little something strange for a piece of change, make them transport themselves, because it's against the law for you to transport them. Okay. But Diddy was very remorseful, except when they asked him two questions. And the one question was about the woman who went by the name Mia, the girl who used to work for him. And she had a lot to say about, him being very physically aggressive with her, sexually, and that kind of thing. He maintains he's never had sex with her. And he came across as somebody who was, a bit aggressively angry. Not like a man who's been sitting in jail for a year, but he came across with an attitude, and that definitely did not help his cause. He got about as much time as I thought he was going to get, maybe 5 years. His children, God bless them. Oh, God bless those little kids. They cried, they wept. And one of the twins, I can't remember which one it was, said, our mother was already taken away from us, and now you're taking away our father. And that, well, I'm telling you, had me at my desk like, don't do it, Judge, don't do it. But then I thought about how this man had the entire world at his fingertips, and he chose that life. He chose to commit crime. He didn't have to. He wasn't up against the wall for any of this. So I expect a slew of civil lawsuits to follow this, but I don't see him doing more than 18 months.
Wow. Yeah, he emotionally apologized, calling his actions sick and vowing change, while, as you mentioned, his children delivered tearful impact statements. And again, the defense called the sentence un-American and plans an appeal. So we will continue to follow this story. I'm not surprised at the sentence. I didn't think he was going to really get any time anyway. None of these millionaire celebrities do, really. But we'll continue to follow it. Yeah, it is what it is. All right.
It's a tough situation. I mean, you think about what it's like for him to have been at the top of the world, and then due to his own actions to fall so hard so fast. He needs a professional size timeout. He definitely needs to sit a little bit longer than he sat, because that level of aggression, when they asked him about the woman who goes by the pseudonym Mia, showed that he had not yet learned a lesson, not yet got through to him that you just cannot do what you want to do, and you cannot traffic in human bodies. It's just not what we do. So hopefully he'll come out a better man.
This sounds like a commentary on the
Right.
situation.
I doubt it. But what honestly, I'm just not really involved. I'm not really what do you call it? Not entertained, but really care about this story. I mean, really, everyone to me that was involved were a bunch of degenerates. It's just like, Cassie stayed with him for years. She was, there was credible testimony about how she was actively involved in these freak offs. So much so, she was actually threatening people that were talking about blowing the whistle on this, stuff. Most of these people were, fully
degenerate.
Degenerate, and they were engaging in all of this on their own will. So I guess it is what it is. We'll see.
Yeah.
Most of the time, I feel sorry for the kids, is what, like you mentioned.
Do. I absolutely
I feel sorry for the children, but now they're grown, so no telling what they'll turn into.
Doesn't he have a little mixed race child. I think she's Thai and black. There's like 4 or 5. Or
Maybe. Who knows how many he
You never
has.
know.
Yeah, you're right. So we will see. Now, here is a case that was gut-wrenching to me. The unholy release of Ronald Exantus, the monster who savagely stabbed an innocent 6-year-old Logan Tipton to death in his own bed back in 2015 after serving a measly 7 years, folks. 7 years, less than a decade, for ending a child's life. This animal's back on the streets. Take a look at this. This is clip 3.
He stood up with me on top of him, just stood up and threw me 10, 15 feet across the room and went after her.
Dean Tipton says December 7th, 2015 is a night that changed his life. He says his children woke him up. He then found a man attacking his children.
And when I got to the top of the stairs, he attacked me. He come at me with the knife.
The night took a tragic turn with the loss of a life, his 6-year-old son, Logan. Dean says immediately after Logan's death, he lost his will to live.
I laid in bed. I gave up. I gave up on life. I gave up on my family. I gave up on everybody. I just wanted to die.
In the years since, the family has done their best to cope, but mentions they are mentally and emotionally scarred. And they are hurt that Ronald Exantus will no longer be behind bars.
Everybody deserves a fighting chance to have justice for them, and it's not.
I've had my talks with God, because I'm not afraid to tell you all. I told the court, if I ever cross paths with him, I will kill the man. I will kill him where he stands.
Wow. I mean, my goodness. This is so heartbreaking, this story. I can't believe he got out so fast. Folks, we want to get into this. Again, as you come in, please hit that like button. We want this to get out to as many people as possible, because the mainstream media news isn't really covering this story. It's only influencers and YouTube channels like ours that are really getting into this. To help us unpack this and react to this story, we're bringing on Gimpy from Just the Guys podcast, and he is also, our Metro Conservative Media brother here. How are you doing tonight, Gimpy?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Good. Yes. I want to just get your reaction to this first, and in particular, which has been really going viral, is this father saying that if he sees this man, he's going to unalive him. Do you think?
Yeah, I want to sit on that guy's jury afterwards, so I can vote not.
Me too.
Say again.
Yeah. So I want to sit on that guy's jury after he does it, so I can vote not guilty.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, any parent would do that.
The crazy thing about this is that when people give victim impact statements about how someone in their family has been brutalized and that kind of thing, there are a lot of other things going on in the courtroom. And what I really wish they would do is, when victim families are giving an impact statement, that nothing moves in that courtroom. Nothing. There's no shuffling of papers. There's no looking at other computer screens. I need the judge. I need the jury. I need everybody locked in to hear not just the heart-wrenching grief, but like this father is saying, if you let this man out, I'm going to guarantee you, if I ever cross paths with him, I will be sitting in that box. Without question, I'm going to prison because I'm going to kill him. And there's not one part of my heart that if I were on that jury, just like you, Gimpy, they could catch him drenched in this man's blood. They could catch him wearing this guy's.
He could have live streamed it to Facebook. He's not guilty.
Not guilty.
Yeah, not guilty.
Not guilty. There's no way.
No way.
It's just, we have got to do something with these incredibly lenient judges, and this sentencing is outrageous. Yeah. Absolutely outrageous.
And let's talk about the trial. So this guy sat in Woodford County Jail for nearly 3 years. His case, a media storm shaking Kentucky's heartland. He was charged with murder, first-degree burglary, and multiple counts of assault. The trial kicked off in April of 2018, a 3-week spectacle of graphic testimony and psychiatric duels. Prosecutors painted him as a cold-blooded killer, a seemingly normal nurse with no prior record who snapped into savagery without warning. But the defense hammered the insanity angle, saying Exantis suffered from severe mental illness, undiagnosed until the attack, with common hallucinations urging the violence. And that's what he got off on. The jury came out with a split verdict, I believe, not guilty by reason of insanity on Logan's murder and the burglary, sparing him a life sentence. And, he was sentenced that same month to 20 years in prison. He was shipped to Kentucky State Pen, with the Kentucky Supreme Court upholding in 2020 amid appeals. But he was then released after 10 years. Is that right? 10 years in prison.
Yep. Guess he's no longer crazy.
If you get convicted by guilty by reason of insanity, make mental institutions great again, you're in Bellevue for the rest of your life. If we're going to foot the bill, you're going to be in the place you belong, right? And you're never getting out. You murdered a 6-year-old, you're never coming home. There's no, sorry, it doesn't matter what the verdict says. The verdict said you're crazy. You're never being reintegrated into society, period. That's it. You're in a padded room for the rest of your life. That's what the alternative. The other one is you're in a concrete cell the rest of your life. You don't kill a 6-year-old, get convicted, and somehow walk away a decade later. That's just, I'm sorry. I'd be like that dad, and every minute I end up in jail would be worth it. I'm sorry. But
he terrorized that family. Not only the murdered child, but everyone in that father was reliving every single moment. Can you imagine waking up and someone's attacking your children? You don't know if you're asleep or what's going on, right? When people have this kind of so-called mental break, it's not like Humpty Dumpty. You don't get to put the pieces back together again. Of course, you can find a combination of psychotropic drugs and therapy that kind of help the person. But what happens when he stops taking the medication?
Yeah,
I don't care. Sorry, I'm sorry, Nicole, you don't get that opportunity. You gave that away when you had the homicidal psychotic break in the first place. You are no longer safe for society. We used to have that standard. You can't just wander back out. There's no way you get out. There's no psychotropic drug. See, this is the problem. And I don't know if you ladies agree or not, but we think we can pump people up with SSRIs and neurotransmitter inhibitors and rewire their brain through chemistry, and all of a sudden society is safer. Just the side effects they read you on the stupid commercials tell you that you're going to die from the product you're taking.
Of course.
I'm sorry. Make mental institutions great again, and people like him get put in rooms and they never see the light of day. You're not allowed.
Let's talk about this case, because as you mentioned, it was random. So, I mean, around 1 a.m., he targeted the Tipton family home, at random, smashing through a side door, while Dean Tipton, his wife Heather, and their 3 young kids, Logan, Dakota, Logan was 6, Dakota is 12, and another daughter, slept peacefully upstairs. Then he didn't come empty-handed for long. He sunk into the kitchen, grabbed a gleaming butcher knife from the block, and crept up the stairs like a predator in a horror flick. And his first victim was little Logan. And they said that he hit that boy so hard in the head with that knife that the knife bent. I mean, blood soaked the sheets, and all they heard was the little boy screaming. They let this man out in 10 years?
7 years.
Not even 10, 7 years.
Which, he's much physically bigger, right? He's a different person, probably 100% worse than he was before he went in. And I agree with you, Gimpy. Listen, one of the worst things that ever happened to this country is that lawsuit the ACLU filed to make sure that America had to close its mental institutions. This gave us the homeless problem that we have almost immediately, because these people cannot live at home with their families. They cannot. The guy that Daniel Penny choked out, his family was crying, oh, we love our brother, we love our son, but he couldn't live with any of you because he was a damn menace, right? Mm-hmm. So you turn him out onto the street and they wreak havoc all over the public, and these judges give them this little slap on the wrist, a slap on the wrist, a slap on the wrist, until it's one of their children that are stabbed in the head so hard that a knife breaks in two. It's one of their kids.
Our society has lost the sense of what real consequence is. The punishments have to be so brutal that people don't want to commit the crimes. It used to be that way. It wasn't a game. Even though we have a legal system that protects the innocent the best it can, once you cross that line, it was supposed to be over. The fact that people are talking about felons should have the right to vote. No, that's the whole point. That's why you don't get felonies, so you don't lose your right as a citizen, right? Like, no, you are not the same as everyone who isn't a felon. That's not how it works. If you're mentally insane, you are not the same as the rest of us. I'm sorry, it has to stop. At some point, we have to say enough is enough, or you won't have a society. It'll just be crazy people walking around.
Right.
Well, listen to this. I mean, take a look at this next clip of Mayor Bruce Harrell. He's the mayor of Seattle, and what he thinks on his perspective of crime. This is clip 5.
The criminal system has had a disparate impact on Black and brown communities. Let me lead with that. So when this person is committing 6 or 7 crimes, I don't know his or her story. Maybe they were abused as a child. Maybe they're hungry. So my remedy is to find their life story to see how we could help first. I have no desire to put them in jail, but I need to protect you, and that's the calibration.
So,
this is the thinking.
Can I say, listen, putting my Shelley hat back on. That's some beta cuck bullshit if I ever heard of my whole life. I don't care if you were abused as a child, as a grown man. If you're wreaking havoc on the general public, your ass needs to be in a cage. It's
not his job. I'm sorry, that's not his job. He's lying to you, all of us. He's gaslighting us. His job is to ensure the public safety. And it doesn't matter what this guy's rationale for why they're breaking the public safety. They're violating the public safety. His first right is to make sure to deal with the public safety issue, not whatever the hell he just talked about. I'm sorry, I agree with you, Nicole, but this is what I'm saying. When our own police force don't have consequences, look, dude, Vlad Tepes, there was no theft. They used to have diamond-encrusted, jewel-encrusted public water cups in the guy that everybody calls Count Dracula's country. Why? Because if you stole, they cut your hand off instantly. It wasn't a trial. It wasn't a long thing. Your hand just came right off because they caught you stealing, right? Consequences. I'm not saying you should be brutal like that. What I'm saying is our system used to have consequences, used to have long-term permanent consequences. A stain on your record followed you for forever.
Well, wait a minute, because we have some people. Yeah, we have some people pushing back against you on that. So we have here some people in the timeline saying, here's Sergeant King says, I disagree on that one. If you served your time, fine. You should get all rights back.
No, that is a misunderstanding.
Kung Fu CJ says, Gimpy, I am a felon of a white collar.
You should never have a right to vote. You are a felon. That is the thing. Consequences have to hold. You have to pay the price. Doing your time that you had your life, your freedom removed from you is because freedom is the guaranteed right in this country. So you're punished by having your freedom removed. You didn't even out the balance. That person's life that you killed or that property that you stole isn't evened out. You just paid the societal consequence for your negative behavior. You now have a scarlet letter for the rest of your life. There is no forgive and forget in the eyes of the law. That way people behave. All this make it a break, give you a break is why everybody runs around sending their kids to shoplift in stores, people. Do you want order or do you want the nonsense that you all run your mouth about in the chat that, oh, well, you should have? No. If you misbehave, if you're found guilty of a felon, you should never vote again. Why? Because then you will stop trying to commit felonies. If you care so much, people, about all these things you're going to lose, don't do the crime. You're hungry, there are food kitchens. Your girlfriend is mad at you, find another woman. There's no need for all these things to make. I We do not have to shift society to the lowest rung to accommodate the bottom. The bottom has to aspire to reach where the rest of us stay the rest of the time. And this mentality that we look down instead of up is why we're here.
We do have to have some societal norms without question, because without having some norms and mores for our society, we have what we have in certain places, this kind of lawlessness. When we talk about Portland and Seattle, where you've got Antifa, grown adults walking around in shiesty masks, pepper spraying cops and all this kind of lawlessness, is because that is what's normal. That's what's expected. The police force, if they respond, may show up with a social worker to try to talk you, through the bullet that's in your chest. We have to get very serious in this country about what our country is made of. I personally fully believe that if you take someone's life, there is no coming back from that. There is no coming back from that. At some point, life has got to have a value to American citizens. And I mean that as somebody who's not afraid of war. Make no mistake, we're going to fight for what's ours and defend what's ours. But if I'm walking down the street and I'm murdered by some guy who claims he was beaten as a 3-year-old and needs a sandwich, do you not see the lunacy in that? He's out before my family's finished grieving.
I know.
We've got to stop doing this. Congressman Fine from Florida has that bill that he's trying to push through that says these judges that let people walk on this kind of shit, we should be holding them accountable.
I'm sorry. That comment that he threw up just now, that's the most sad excuse for a human. Oh, I did something that I know is a felony. I also know felonies cost me my right to vote, but no, I shouldn't. The line is the felony. I saw it in the chat earlier. People are like, there should be a clear, distinct line. Murder is no the term. We set it up already. This was a felony. If you commit a grievous enough crime to rise to the statute of a felony, then you lose rights, because you are no longer a contributing member to society and you have to spend the rest of your life paying for that mistake. It's not an accident that you committed. I wrote a bad check. They're not putting you away for a felony because you wrote a bad check and it bounced. They're putting you away because you ran around handing out rubber checks to everyone you met. And we as a society should feel bad for you and say, oh, poor you had to commit a crime. What about all the people who did it the right way? What are you doing for them to help them live their lives better, since you want us to all accommodate your bullshit? Please.
And even so, and just because you write one bad check, it doesn't equal a felony. It has to reach a certain amount for, I think it was $5,000, I believe, to reach a felony. So again, there is a metric. There is a metric there, and that's the metric. The felony is the metric. So if you do a misdemeanor, you can still vote. But if once it reaches the actual level of felony, then you lose your voting rights. And that's in some states. I believe here you can vote if you are a convicted felon, as long as you are not on probation.
The right to vote.
Listen, if Maryland Democrats, if MD Dems had their way, they would go in with absentee ballots attached to $35 for everybody's commissary and collect their votes. They really and truly would. Hanging on to power for some politicians is all they think about. When you see people sitting in their seats 10, 15, 20 years, you need to know they will dig your body up to get your vote.
They won't have to. They'll just say you voted. They're not that energetic. They're just going to say you voted.
Yeah. Well, Gimpy, thank you so much for joining us on this topic. I knew you were passionate about this and I had to get your perspective. So thank you.
Thank you,
Gimpy. Thank you.
All right, folks. So again, as you all come in, please hit that like button, and subscribe. We are building here. We have a goal to hit 250,000 subs by the end of the year. So please, we need your help. Hit that like button, subscribe, share this in a DM, post it on your social media timelines. We want to grow this community. All right. So again, we're talking about these extraordinary cases, folks, that have just, been handed down today, or at least going viral today. And another one is Gateway Church. So, wow. Gateway Church founder Robert Morris, once the golden boy of Texas evangelism, preaching prosperity to 100,000 souls and more, finally faces the music. So, yesterday, in an Osage County, Oklahoma courtroom, this 64-year-old predator pleaded guilty to 5 counts of lewd or indecent acts with a child. Take a look as he's handcuffed out of the courtroom. This is clip 4.
I'm just happy that it is over. I feel good about it. It's behind us. What does this do like? I don't know that I have words.
Wow. So again, he was found guilty of abusing a 12-year-old Cindy Clemshire in the 1980s. So Nicole, I mean, was this God's justice or the system's long overdue slap?
Listen, this is man's justice. The justice that he's going to receive from God Almighty this pales in comparison. When people, especially leaders of the church, abuse children, there's a special place in hell for you because you're using God's word, God's property, to influence your sexual desire for a child. And that is the most despicable thing. I was never a fan of this particular person. I'm not a big gospel of prosperity person. I prefer my Bible-based church. But for people who buy into that kind of thing, I'd offer this warning. Don't just surrender your children to people because they're in the church.
Right.
You don't know why people are in church. Church is not for holy people. Church is for sinners, right? Holy people don't have to go. Sinners go to church. So be careful with your children. Be careful with children, especially when people take a particular interest like he did in this girl. This is outrageous, and I'm glad they finally caught up with him. I know that her family, and she is glad that it's behind her, but he's getting his just desserts for right now. What comes later is going to be tremendous.
Yeah. I don't think he got enough, honestly. I mean, he got, what was it? He got several years, but most of it is him at home. He got some type of home detention.
Yeah.
And, honestly, I think people that do this type of stuff need to be behind bars for the rest of their lives. I mean, he's sick. Yeah.
And not only sick, most people think, well, his reputation is ruined. He'll lose his position at the church, and all of that is right. And all of that is what should happen. But imagine what her life was like. Right. Imagine her conversations with God, because I guarantee you, he brought God up to this little girl when he was molesting her.
No.
Her having to be able to find her way in this world, thinking that the God who loves us all, the creator of all things great and small, didn't like her enough to save her from this man. Yeah. He should be under the jail. I don't care that he's old, and I don't care that he's infirmed. Let him be old and infirmed in the prison. We have got to get very serious about protecting our way of life. When we don't, we have this. I wish I could say that this case is rare, but this stuff happens all of the time. Right. And we get so numb to it. We get so, okay, it's another, pastor touching kids. And Lord have mercy, don't let it be a Catholic priest. People don't even bat an eyelash anymore. No. It's ridiculous.
It is. Personally, I think these kind of child molesters, even pornographers, groomers, rapists, as we say, they should get the death penalty to me, because the type of abuse and torment that this type of act, this type of filth that they put on people can last generations. That woman, and because of God's grace, because of his, the power of the Holy Spirit, we know that he can heal all things. But, there's a high probability that this woman was set on a path of sexual deviation and all kinds of things. Because we know that people who are abused many times when they're young, it sets them off on a sexualized path.
Absolutely. That's the thing when children are exposed to those type of sensations and feelings when they're
Right.
very small, sometimes promiscuity comes right behind that, and that feelings of worthlessness and all of those things happen. Um, but you're right, KJ, sometimes families are strong enough to withstand that, but
Mhm.
this was probably something that was a sentinel event for her family. As a parent, when you talk about somebody's faith being shaken, there would be an issue. And then this man went on to continue to lead this church like
Mhm.
nothing ever happened. Where is God in that? And I'm sure those prayers were heard by God, but where was God in during all of that? It would be tough from a faith standpoint to see this man, standing at the pulpit, allegedly preaching the word of God, knowing
Mm.
full well what he did to my child. I
Yeah.
might have to pull a gimpy on him. I'm sorry. I do my time in jail. I'd have to pull a gimpy.
Yeah, but and his sentence was it wasn't adequate to me. He
I don't
had
think
a
so
plea
either.
agreement. He received a 10-year prison sentence, but with all but 6 months suspended. So he'll serve the initial 6 months in Osage County Jail, followed by 5 years of supervised probation, including the remaining 9.5 years of the term. He has to pay $270,000 restitution to the survivor. That ain't no money. And he's forbidden to have any contact with the survivor or the minors outside of his family. He has to register as a sex offender. But that's nothing. What's going on with our judicial system, Nicole?
Well, listen, this is what happens when we get too many liberals sitting on the bench. You guys remember, go back to the election night show, and everybody was very happy. Don't get me wrong, I was incredibly happy. But one of the things that happened right before Trump was sworn is there was a batch of Joe Biden appointees, judges that were sitting, and the deal was, and there was really no reason to make a deal, but the deal was just to go ahead and just let them on through. We're not going to drag them through Senate confirmation or any of that. And I was like, no. Let's drag them. Let's drag them, because what it takes is just for one activist judge to get on the bench to make a ruling, and it allows other judges to lean on that ruling to do similar things. There is no way that this man who molested a child should have any access to any child, relative or not, under any circumstances. He should be barred from being within 50 feet of any child, relative or not. He should be on that sex offender registry, and he should do every day of that little 5-6 years that they gave him in jail. It doesn't matter to me that he's a pillar of his community, because was he a pillar when he was touching this child? Where was the pillar then? I would like to take the pillar and bash his damn skull in. That's what I'd like to do with the pillar. We look at the wrong things when we take a look, especially at people who prey on children. If you can't be a child, you're never going to be a productive adult. There's no chance of that, because you're always fighting those demons. And there's something has to be done with these judges. It is just remarkable how much the American public has allowed to go on. And we just kind of shrug our shoulders and say, oh, that's a shame, thoughts and prayers. And they continue to rule on these cases this way. It's ridiculous. If this was a regular person and not a pastor of a mega church, he would have that sex offender registry. He would be barred from children, including his own damn children. He would not be allowed around children. I would love to know what he said to them that made them think that he's safe, when clearly he is not.
All right, folks. Well, that does it for us tonight. We have some additional super chatters here. We really appreciate you all. Thank you so much. All right. We have Kung Fu CJ says, Gimpy, I am a felon. Oh, we got this one, of white collar crime. Yes. Again, Kung Fu CJ with the $5 super chat says, I still proclaim my innocence. I got convicted for something someone else did. Wow. All right, Kung Fu CJ, we are praying for you. Yeah,
definitely shades of gray. Yeah, definitely shades of gray. I wish everything was black and white, but it's not.
Yes, absolutely. All right, folks. So, you still got more of us coming. Tomorrow night is Just the Guys podcast. They will be on at Just the Guys podcast at 6:30 p.m. tomorrow night. Check them out there. Go over there once we finish here and subscribe. Hit that notification bell so you know when they go live. All right, and when they post content. And then Sunday night, it's me at KJ Christian Conservative. We got a special night for you all. We have an apologetics preacher coming on, and he is a former Catholic, and he is talking about the Catholic Church. He's really good, guys. He's really good. He knows his Bible. He knows his stuff. Let me get you his name before we go. It's Brian. Oh my gosh. He has a YouTube page also. I should have his stuff. I'm sorry, I don't. But yeah, he will be on with us on Sunday night at 9 p.m. So definitely check us out. And then what else we have? We'll be back Monday. We'll be back. Shelly will be back on Monday. She'll be back with us Monday night. She's out tonight. And so I know you guys have been asking about it, but she will be back on Monday along with Tyrone from Soldiers of Finance. You'll find him here on Monday night as well. All right. Final thoughts, Nicole.
Listen, 'tis the season for Lincoln Day dinners here in Maryland and probably across the country. It's a little bit harder for the party that's in power to raise money. So these Lincoln Day dinners are how central committees support themselves and help Republicans, in this case, get elected. So Carroll County here in Maryland is having their Lincoln Day dinner with Congressman Scott Perry, Republican from Pennsylvania, on October 23rd. And this is going to be a tremendous dinner. If you're in the area and you'd like to get a ticket, you can hit their website, ccgop.net/dinner, or you can DM me directly. Happy to help. I am always happy to help central committees. As a former central committee chairman and vice chairman for the state party, this is really, really God's work, folks. These little bit of dollars that they raise at these dinners go a long way to helping people get across the finish line, especially your school board candidates and your local electeds. This is how they support themselves. KJ can attest.
Yes, I was vice chair. Central committee. I totally agree. Yeah, they do a lot of work. They're always the ones who don't get as much acclaim, and credit. So definitely support these central committees. It's a great way to do it. The Lincoln Day dinners, and they're fun too. They're a lot of fun.
They are a lot of fun, and I know that the chair there in Carroll County is my friend Mercedes, and Mercedes is generally an incredibly fun person. All my girlfriends are fun. Like before I started doing pop, and still since I've been doing pop, KJ and Shelly are my personal friends, right? We get together, we hoot, holler, have a good time. We like to get dressed up and go party and whatnot. So all of my friends are super fun. So you can count on this party being something more than just your average chicken dinner, because she's not a chicken dinner kind of girl. So it should be fun. And Scott Perry's a great speaker. He definitely brings the fire and the brimstone with him. So it should be a really, really great time. So if you're in the area and you'd like to participate and help out that central committee, that would be amazing.
All right. And I think we have some more super chatters here. Let's see here. I thought I saw. I saw a note. Somebody gifted. Jessica says gifted one Pop in Politics membership. Wow. Thank you so much. Yes, indeed. Thank you, Jessica. We really appreciate you. And you know what? Because we missed there was I think it was you've been asking a lot of questions about Chris Papst's book. And you have your daughter, you were asking about IEPs and stuff.
Yes.
So we want to gift you a copy of his book, From Pop in Politics. Yes, so we're gonna gift you a copy of his book. We gotta get your email and to get all of your information, and you got a book coming your way. That is Failure Factory by Chris Papst. He was a guest on the show earlier. Great book. Like I said, I think this is going to be a really good tool for people in education. Also, just pushing back against the woke nonsense that the lies that they try to push out. He's been on the ground, an investigative reporter, and has some really good information. So we're going to gift you that book, Jessica. And I realized the guy I'm having on what is it? Christian Conservative is the Bible in Context. His name is Patrick O'Brien. Yes. He has a YouTube, the Bible in Context, and he's coming on, and he's a former Catholic, and he's going to go give us all the information about evangelicals, Protestants, Catholics. So definitely check out at KJ Christian Conservative on Sunday night. All right, we're done. This is it. We will be back on Monday. We love you guys. Until next time, count your blessings and live a life of purpose. Good night.
Good night.